Money alone cannot win you elections, but lack of money can cost you an election. Everybody has a right to change their opinion on a party, on an ideology, or an issue. But once you're elected for a 5-year term, changing in between and purely for the sake of power, and that's defection. Our fear has been that the voters list is prone for manipulation. But if the election commission is failing in maintaining the integrity of the voters list and allowing individuals and agencies to manipulate the voters list by deleting names wrongly and by adding ghost or proxy or illegal names in the voters list, then there is no meaning to election. We have not been aggressive enough in exposing the 40% corruption in Karnataka.
He's a former minister, a 5-time MLA. Joining me today is senior Congress leader Krishna Byre Gowda. Firstly, thank you for speaking with us. I want to start off by asking you, have contesting elections become a game of money? Is it a question of who has the deeper pockets here?
Money has come to play a very large role. Money is not the only election winner. A lot of factors go into it. But it has become that without money, it's also difficult to win elections, right? Money can't win you elections, but lack of money can cost you an election. So the role of money has definitely grown over the years. And the kinds of money we are talking about are also very alarmingly shameful kinds of money are coming to have an effect on the elections. Yes, to answer your question, the role of money has grown. Money alone cannot win you elections, but lack of money can cost you an election.
Okay. Two senior BJP leaders, Jagadish Shettar and Laxman Savadi, have joined the Congress recently. And over the years, we've seen a number of Karnataka's political leaders going to the rival camp. And, it's irrespective of party. So my question is, is it no longer about an ideological position? Is it just a question about the winnability of a candidate? What is your personal view?
There is something called free will. And everybody is not beholden or indoctrinated to a certain position ideologically. One can have a change of heart. And the time to have a change of heart is at the time of elections, right? But once you get elected on a ticket, changing party for the sake of power after having been elected from a certain party and before the end of that tenure, now that's the most unfortunate part, and that's the most degrading part. So defection, we call it a defection when you change party, when you are elected to an office, right? But prior to election, changing a party is, I think, open in all societies and in all democracies. And we must accept the premise that a person, any individual has the right to have a change of heart, a change of mind for the right or wrong reasons. But everybody has a right to change their opinion on a party, on an ideology, or an issue. But once you're elected for a 5-year term, changing in between and purely for the sake of power, and that's defection, right? And but at the time of elections, it happens around the world. It happens in all states. It happens in all parties. There is a difference between these two. So yes, some amount of free will should be there. We cannot be 100% beholden to an idea or an ideology. Then the free will, the right of an individual then is lost, and the right of an individual must always be respected.
Okay, fair enough. Last year at an event, you said that election is only a precursor to democracy, and that election itself is not a democracy, and that our democracy is in fact becoming an autocracy. So what made you make that statement?
No, it's a fact. China, excuse me, Russia has elections. But would you call Russia a democracy today? So this electoral autocracies are growing around the world. Turkey manages the current president there manages to win elections, but you can't call it a pure democracy. So elections are an essential part of a democracy, but how we run the society is what democracy is about. And I don't think in India today we have a free, independent media, which is another precursor to democracy. And various members of the judiciary have voiced already that their autonomy is being encroached upon by the ruling party. So you can't say that judiciary has independence in our society. And the way institutions, be it Enforcement Directorate, the ED, the Income Tax Department, the CBI, and even the Election Commission are being manipulated. Doesn't the executive is also being manipulated and made reduced into a puppet. So those are, and the civil society and the way this government is using draconian laws to go about anybody who speaks against this government. These are all signs of autocracy, definitely not signs of democracy. So as a result, nominal democracy, a formulaic democracy is not what we want. We want a real, substantial democracy in its true spirit. And unfortunately, in India, that true democracy has been under assault by the ruling dispensation. This is reflected in worldwide rankings of Indian democracy, be it Freedom House, be it VDEM Institute, be it the Economist Intelligence Unit's annual ranking of democracy around the world. In every freedom index or a democracy index, India's position has slipped year on year since BJP came to power. So these are all signs that democracy is under very, very serious stress. It's on the verge of actually breaking down in India. And I still repeat that holding elections on a timely manner is not a certification of democracy. Elections are necessary, but not the only criteria for democracy.
In 2017, a complaint was filed against a private agency named Chilume Trust for allegedly illegally collecting voter data in your constituency. The complaint was closed, however, and 5 years later, the newsman actually found that the same Chilume Trust was again illegally collecting voter data and uploading this voter data. What are the dangers of a private agency like Chilume doing such a thing?
See, there is a space for private agencies in democracy and also in voter outreach. I wouldn't even rule it out. But the dangerous thing here is to give them access to electoral, voter list and data associated with it. So if you authorize these agencies to add and delete voters, then it becomes a problem. Also, if you allow these agencies to map voters with various other data points, like their telephone number, like their income status, like their social media profile, and on top of it, you overlay the Aadhaar, which becomes the connecting point for all these, which are individual, then it becomes very dangerous, because you can then play with these people based on their income and their emotional identities and cultural background, and then it becomes manipulation of voters. On that is one side, on the voter outreach side. But more importantly, our fear has been that the voters list is prone for manipulation. Because in my constituency, the BJP has been consistently saying that they have managed to influence deletion of certain numbers of voters. They have been saying that we have managed to get so many of our people included in the voters list. And in a large constituency like mine, which has about close to 10 lakh people and more than 5 lakh voters, you can't expect me, a candidate, to go verifying the genuinity of each deletion and each addition and each entry in the voters list. It's simply beyond me. We just trust the election commission to do the right job. But if the election commission is failing in maintaining the integrity of the voters list and allowing individuals and agencies to manipulate the voters list by deleting names wrongly and by adding ghost or proxy or illegal names in the voters list, then there is no meaning to election, right? You can win an election. I mean, all constituencies are tightly fought. Ultimately, you just need to add or delete about 8 to 10,000 votes to win an election. And in a 5 lakh voter constituency, if anybody is allowed to manipulate about 8-10,000 votes, and that has a bearing on the outcome of the election, then what's the purpose of fighting an election? So this has been our contention with the election commission. And during the last couple of years of BJP rule, it appears that the Chilume organization has been given wide-ranging access to not only collect voters' personal information, but we suspect that they've also had access to the voters list itself, which is even more. So one side is the privacy issue, on the other side is the integrity of the voters list itself. And both, it appears, have been manipulated by Chilume with the patronage of the ruling party, which is the BJP.
So you believe there is a link between Chilume and the BJP?
It appears, for all practical purposes, it appears to be the case because they have received all kinds of permissions. There are connections between the BJP leaders and also the Chilume organization. And it appears that most of the customers of Chilume also happen to be BJP, maybe one or two exceptions, but majority of the customers are BJP. So somewhere it appears circumstantially, of course it needs to come out in an investigation, but prima facie it appears there is a very close relationship between Chilume, BJP, and hence the whole doubts about the voters list process.
Why has the Congress not gone big on the 40% corruption allegations against the BJP? Is it because you think that corruption is not a big poll issue, or I mean, what exactly is the reason? Because there's a perception that the Congress tends to drift from one issue to another without really going hammer and tongs against the BJP on this issue.
So it is not that corruption has always been an issue, and that is not the reason that Congress has not gone very aggressively on the 40% issue. I do not speak on this issue. I'm not speaking for the Congress party, because I think if you ask the official version of Congress party, they would say that we have been very aggressive on the corruption issue. But on this issue, I tend to agree with you that we have not been aggressive enough in exposing the 40% corruption in Karnataka and making it as wide an issue as it ought to have been. So I do believe that Congress has done a disservice to itself politically by not fully exploiting this issue politically and electorally, and also has done a disservice to Karnataka by not making corruption a political issue and a people's issue, right? But Congress party, of course, though I am a Congress person, but Congress party may argue that they have been very aggressive. But I think, anyway, coming to the reasons, it's not because we think that somehow corruption has always been there and so hence we don't have a strong argument. I think it's, if I look at it more practically, there have been an endless series of issues that BJP has thrown up. It's the, starting with buying MLAs to internal hassles within BJP, the power tussle between Yadurappa and the others, the power tussle between ministers, the instability of the government, and various other sex scams of ministers. So, leading up to Bommai's leadership and always questions being on Bommai's leadership, to BJP ministers or legislators making allegations about their own people. So there has been an endless stream of issues that have come up. While these are all, some of them are political nature, corruption is a people's issue. But also, when you come to people's issues, the unemployment issue, the price rise issue, and indiscriminate application of GST on essential items. So, there have been an array of issues. And in Karnataka, if you come, they are meddling with our KMF and Nandini. So, I think it's a state of too many issues to narrow down and focus on one issue that has perhaps come in the way of Congress going hammer and tongs and taking it to logical end. So that's probably a more practical explanation. But nevertheless, I agree with you that we should have made it a far greater critical issue and a more key issue in the last 2-3 years. But that's not to say that we are not concerned about it, or that's not to say that we will not work on it. I think Congress party is serious on the corruption issue, and hopefully with the Congress government in place, I do sincerely hope that Congress party will take the task of putting administration back on track as a priority. I do hope, for the sake of Karnataka, that Congress will prioritize that challenge.
Congress has come up with a number of promises already. The 2,000 rupees monthly support to women head of households, the 200 units of free power, monthly relief to unemployed youth. But a lot of critics say that this will come at a great cost to the exchequer. So do you think that this is financially feasible? How do you ensure that you don't put the state in debt with these welfare schemes?
See, BJP central government has really squeezed the states by manipulating devolution of funds to states. For example, the Finance Commission has recommended a 41% devolution. In reality, it is less than 29%, is the actual devolution that is happening to states. That is actually the real issue. I think BJP might talk about these welfare programs, and they have been at it for 1 year, opposing welfare programs, in order to hide the injustice being meted out to states by the union government in the form of restricted devolution of funds, and particular to states like Karnataka. If we get our rightful share of unions revenues, if Karnataka gets its rightful share, I don't see any problem in managing development and also welfare programs. Number two, let me also just remind you the basic theory of economics. It is that in order to revive an economy, you need to put the money in the hands of the people who badly need that money. Meaning, if people are going to spend every rupee that comes to them, particularly people who are struggling for daily survival, and those are the people who Congress proposes to help, every paisa that we are giving to them will immediately be spent, and every rupee spent tends to have a 5 to 6 rupees of effect on the economy. So the best way to revive the economy is to actually help the poorest in the society, and they are not in a position to save any money we are going to give. to them. It will be spent, and that will trigger an economic activity, and that will perhaps boost the GDP of our state and of our society as well. And then some of it will anyway come back to government as tax, but leave that as that's the second point. Third point is, when you are doling out sops to the rich by reducing the corporate income tax from 30% to 22% and creating a new lower slab at 15%, are you not squandering the nation's future? Only when poor people get some help, poor people, who are these people? Those who are struggling to make ends meet month on month basis, right? If you help them, then the state's finances are going to get in jeopardy. But when you slash the corporate income tax on the super rich from 30 to 22% and to 15%, are you not jeopardizing the finances of the government? And as a result, you are passing on those taxes on to the poor people by taxing rice, taxing wheat, taxing maida. So there is a very gross inequity in our society. And if you anyway pass sops to the rich, they're going to park that money in a bank. They're not going to spend the saved money, and that is not going to help the economy to revive. There is, of course, a theory that if you give tax concessions to the rich, super rich, they will invest that money. But we have seen it for 5-6 years now. None of it is converted into investment because the unemployment continues to be at its worst rate ever in India's history. So obviously, giving sops to the super rich has not worked. And perhaps a better way is to trigger demand, to create demand. And in order to create demand, trigger demand, you need to put money in the hands of the people who need that very badly. And the fourth point is, these debates are very upsetting. Every year you write off loans to the super rich at a rate of about 2 lakh crores a year or even more. And why is that not ruining the country? So if the rich person defaults, then it's a non-performing asset. If the poor person doesn't pay, then it's a default and hence liable for recovery. So I think these debates are really rigged against a common person in our society, and in a very highly unequal society with social inequalities which are 1,000-2,000 years old, and economic inequalities. These debates need to be actually more measured, and we cannot allow our prejudices to guide our debates. So I think this whole debate itself is not founded on science or economic theory. It's more prejudices that are guiding us. Maybe some people knowingly make these arguments, some people unknowingly make these arguments based on our historical, dichotomies between the rich and the poor. And we need to be careful. I think this is the best economical way to revive and stimulate an economy, by putting the money in the hands of the people who badly need it so that they will spend it, and hence the economy benefits from it, and everybody benefits if there is a spurt in economic activity. So this is a good way to revive the economy in my view.
Finally, what do you believe are the Congress's chances in Bangalore? How many seats do you expect Congress to win here?
The public sentiment in Bangalore is decidedly against BJP. This is my sense when I talk to people. They are very upset with the maladministration, misgovernance of Karnataka, and also misgovernance of Bengaluru. Bengaluru was and partially is the Silicon Valley of Asia, the IT capital of the world, the startup capital of Asia, was the most dynamic city. It attracted the best talent from India and around the world. It attracted the best investments. And in the last 2-3 years, we have noticed that some of the prominent IT investors are choosing to go to other cities. Whereas Bangalore used to be their primary choice earlier. So Bangalore is losing out fresh investments to other cities. Number two, we have even heard the even more disturbing talk of some of the stationed investors in Bangalore thinking of moving to other cities because of the negligence of Bengaluru. And we have also seen that Bengaluru being called the drowning city, the pothole capital. So there is a lot of damage to brand Bengaluru under the BJP regime by the sheer negligence and a corruption bordering on racketeering and looting of state resources by the BJP. So collectively, all these have caused a disenchantment among voters of Bengaluru towards BJP. So the sentiment is decidedly against BJP. But how many seats we win will vary from depending on the candidates, depending on how well we fight elections in those constituencies. So our gains will be substantial, but may not be very substantial. But we will improve our tally quite a bit in Bengaluru, but not to the extent, perhaps, that the sentiment is against. So not to that extent. No, because in some constituencies, we have not, over the last 1 or 2 years, developed good candidates. So we have fielded poor candidates in some of the constituencies. So our decision making has been wrong, and also we have failed to prepare over the years good candidates. So hence we may lose out about 2-3 seats for not having. That's the cost of not having good candidates. But wherever we have put a good candidate, Congress has a very good chance of winning. So we'll win definitely comfortably more than half the seats in Bangalore. But I think if we had fielded the right candidates, we could have gone as high as 2/3 mark in Bengaluru. So, but the final results may not be as high as 2/3, maybe less.
And for the state?
Uh, Karnataka, the arrogance of BJP combined with bad governance, high corruption, price rise, all these issues together have definitely put BJP on the way back. JDS hasn't managed to pull itself together because of family, squabbles and whatnot, and they have not failed to project themselves as an alternative. And people want a stable government, and only Congress can provide a stable government. Because if you see, 99 to 2004, we gave a rock solid stable government. 2013 to 2018, we gave a rock solid, very stable government. And whenever, except these two periods, if you look at Karnataka from 94 onwards, a stable government has eluded Karnataka. There has been horse trading, frequent change of chief ministers, instability. And instability tends to have an effect on governance and also development, take a hit. So people want a stable government, because if you have a hung assembly, then you again get into horse trading and MLAs defections, buying, selling of MLAs. And in this whole process, Karnataka loses out if you don't have a stable government. So I think people want a stable government. And people also sense that Congress is the one which can provide a stable government. So, and when we were in power 2013 to 18, we have given some of the most popular programs in Karnataka's history. We ran a very good administration. We ran a developmental administration and also a welfare administration. We managed to strike a balance between development and welfare. I don't know how much of that is contradictory, but we've always find that development and welfare go together. So we did that between 2013 and 18. So we ran a good government. We delivered on development and welfare. We gave a stable government, and we have the talent pool in Congress necessary to put the administration back on track. And since only Congress can do the stable government and only Congress has the talent pool to put administration back on track, I think people are steadily moving towards Congress. So I think we should get a comfortable majority.
Thank you so much for speaking with us.